It is a basic gauze that is impregnated with a zinc and calamine mixture. Zinc and calamine are actually really good for wound healing and skin surfaces anyhow, but the purpose of an Uniboot is for compressive purposes. It is wet. It is not soaking wet, but it is wet, so when you put it on, you actually have to have some type of a secondary. I always use Coban as my secondary so that you have that extra compression. When you wrap gauze around anything, it's gonna have folds, and with an Uniboot, you can just wipe those folds down, like compress them down. It doesn't matter, the little kinks in them, it shouldn't be a big deal. All right, so come scooch to me.
And the other thing, with this wrapping, you don't need to be concerned like with an ACE wrap where you're having a pull in one direction and a pull in the other, or avoiding circumferential. So this wrapping is not the same as ACE wrapping. So just so you know,
it's a gauze wrapping. It is not going to stretch at all. So we're going to pretend this is gauze. Regardless of what kind of wrapping that you're doing, you always want, when you are wrapping something using like Perlex or whatever, keep this tight. Don't open it up out to here because you will not have any control. And you always want to keep this part close to the skin and coming around here. Roll it away, okay? So I'm not coming here and wrapping it around this way. I'm starting on the skin and rolling it away. Does that make sense from the roll? Okay. So I'm going to start again here at the base of the med heads, and this doesn't matter if it is an Uniboot, I don't care if it's an ACE wrap, whatever you're doing it for, base of the med heads. Here, I'm going to come around through here and do probably like a 2 anchor here, and then you can do your basic figure 8 around the bottom and come up, and then go all the way up with a 50% overlay. And this is not quite long enough, but I'll go all the way up almost to the fib head here. Okay, good with that. That's a circumferential. There is also a braid technique that I'll show you. It provides a little bit more compression, and it just looks really pretty. But remember, the biggest thing with any kind of compression wrap is compliance of your patients. So if they're gonna go home and cut it off, then you're wasting your time. So you need to make sure that you make it to where they're gonna be compliant with it. So if I just did the figure 8 wrap here, to do a braid technique, you just continue with the figure 8 and coming down and around here and up and around and down. So you can see the braid starts that way. And same thing, the 50% overlay. And you would do that all the way up to the top. Okay. With the Duke boots that we were talking about, with the doing the Uniboot and then the Coban over it, even if you're using that or some type of short strip bandage, even if it's just ACE, remember when you pull out here and come down, it stays that tight. So even if you're pulling out for some stretch, give a little bit, okay? So that you have that recoil, so it's not as tight as a tourniquet, because again, your patient's gonna get home and they're gonna cut it off, and then you just wasted your whole time. The other trick that I will show you that I'll do with Uniboots a lot is when I go to put this on, especially if I know that somebody's lower extremity edema fluctuates depending on their diet or depending on the weather or their activity level. A lot of times, and this is going to be a little challenging to do with this ACE wrap, but I'll come here and then you can do a small flap there and then come back around again on top, and then same thing here, a small flap there, and then come back around the top. And so what that does is, if and when they do go and eat that whole pound of crawfish and shrimp and everything else and their leg blows up, this gives them a little leeway. So when it does swell, it gives them almost like expansions. I know you've seen like the spaces in the buildings in New Orleans, or when it gets hot and all that good stuff. So same thing, and it allows them to remain compliant and they don't go and say the heck with this and cut it off. And then they come with a big scissor gash down their leg because they would have to cut their bandage off too. Questions?
When you put the Coban on, do you just lay it down and apply it? Do you do any stretch with it?
I do a stretch and then I relax.
Okay.
So I'll stretch out and then I'll come back and then I'll wrap it.
Okay.
So I don't stretch it and wrap it to hold it to its maximum, but I'll try to do at least like a 50%. But very important to stretch and relax because it absolutely will act as a tourniquet.
Right, right. Yeah, we were talking about that because Adam's seen it used for hands. He said when they did it there, they just wrapped. It was, hands
Yeah,
were
I've
just a little
seen
different.
hands, fingers. I've seen. I mean, a man had a leg wound here, and they did Coban from here to here, and like this was bulging, and his whole. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, you can't.
Right.
If they were, I've used it before. I've used Coban before, especially with children. Hands and feet burns, and you boxing glove them so that they can't get to the dressings and they can't pick the skin, or they can't get it dirty or open it up. And in that case, it is very, very important to make sure that you are not putting any stretch on it. Coban is great because it sticks to itself. So you can boxing glove somebody up and it's fabulous, but you don't want to do it too tight, especially at their wrist, because now you have a tourniquet and you've just defeated everything that you did before that. Good.